Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. It's me and Jennifer and Jim. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have a different camera on tonight, so I'm hoping that the batteries don't die because, of course, you know, technology and me, I get a thing to plug the camera in. Mind you, I've had this camera forever. It's taken me a million years to do this, and it's got the wrong prong, so it can't plug in from a power source. So I'm using batteries. So if I go black, you still got Jim and Jen. Good evening, my friends. How are you guys?
Hi. Doing
Hi.
Great. Thank
Howdy.
you.
Hi, Jim.
Howdy,
Welcome.
howdy.
How's it going? Jim
Howdy.
was telling me, Jen, earlier that it is snowing like a bitch there in Alaska.
Oh my God.
But what does he expect?
Yeah, it's been since the start of February. It's
Yeah.
been like, I think, except for 3 or 4 days, it has snowed every day.
Every single
Oh
day.
At
my
least
God.
flurries up to significant accumulations.
And is
Except
it
for like 3 or 4
melting in
days.
between or not melting in
Hell
between?
no.
Hell
Hell
no.
no.
So it's getting kind of deep. The snow's getting
Oh,
kind
Yeah,
of deep.
oh
right.
yeah.
It's getting deep.
I've got about 4 feet total sitting on my roof.
Oh my
Whoa.
God.
Do you
That's
still
crazy.
do you just leave it, or do you ever go out there and
Well,
clean it off the
the
roof?
house the house has I basically had engineered scissor trusses made for the house, so
Yeah.
it can withstand a lot of load, and I have a 912 pitch on it, so the
Oh,
load is really transferred well. So I just let loose when it let loose. The
okay.
garage has a 312 pitch, so I clean that off. So,
Yeah. Well, all right. That's cool. And Jennifer, your house, you don't have to clean anything off, right? Because you have a pretty pitched roof.
No.
I mean, these are the
Yeah.
things we
And
think
also,
about.
yeah. And Colorado doesn't get as much snow as you would think, but we've had kind of a crazy week here in Boulder. As you guys might know, we did have a mass shooting here, which
Yeah.
has kind of
Not smiling.
ruptured the protective bubble that we have around Boulder. You know, we always think, oh, well, Boulder's such a safe little place. It's a little Shangri-La. Nothing bad can happen
Yeah.
here.
Yada yada.
And then, you know,
Boom.
it's
It's
very sad.
awful.
There's a heavy pall over this area. It's very depressing right now because we're all kind of
Jennifer,
working through this crazy thing that's just happened, you know?
I'm so sorry, guys. You know, for you, Jennifer, living there, and for everybody affected in every city in the United States. So there you go. And we've said our
Yeah.
piece.
and yeah, it's just, we had one other one in Virginia, then another one this morning. I mean, it's just crazy.
This morning,
But
where?
this is what I heard, like Virginia Beach or something like that.
Oh shit! No wonder why I need a glass of wine here tonight.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, this is what happens
I
when,
don't.
well, it's not the only reason, but when people are stressed out, especially with, everything that's been happening last year or so,
Yep.
then people are gonna deal with things that they in ways they shouldn't be dealing with.
I hear
Yeah.
you. Well,
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
tonight people are joining us. We have the articles Manga Bay. Jennifer and I are going to tag team. This is how it's going to
Yep.
go, guys. It's going to roll like this. We're going to tag team it, and we're going to bitch and moan and complain about biomass. No, I have a video too that I made. And then we are going to slide right into the ocean. And if you heard the beginning, the song that was called I have my my love for the oceans. I hope you guys caught that because we have Jim with us who is an oceanographer, and I looked for a song that wouldn't get me a copyright claim.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Kidding. We
listen,
don't want any of those.
everybody's joining us. So I'm going to play the video, the short one. It's my own footage from a local lumber mill. So you guys enjoy. Well, now we got you primed. Primed and ready. Primed and ready, guys.
Sandy,
Yeah.
was any of that taken near your house?
Oh, yeah, that's the
Don't
lumber
you?
mill in
How was
Angelica.
that?
All of it. Most of all of
Oh,
it, except for
wow.
the last couple of frames with the pellet. But everything
Oh,
else
yeah.
was because they build pallets there, and it's quite. Yeah, I took that stuff last year, and I looked for it today. I put a search in, I found it, I downloaded it, I made it quick, but I wanted to use it, and I finally
Yeah.
got to use it. So,
Yeah.
cheers. Yep, on me.
There you go.
It's pretty disturbing, and it's by me, and holy shit, when I drove through there, Jennifer, the first time after living here, I didn't know it was so massive. And I see what I was saying to Jim was I see the trucks go up and down my street. And I
Yeah.
think I had put that post. I really don't know specifically the New York State plan for replenishing what they're taking, but it is disturbing as shit. And yes, we burn wood here, but it's felled trees. My husband never cuts down anything that's new, and it's a big job to look for that, or people give us wood from trees and whatever. So it's not like that mass consumption, but ugh. So
Yeah.
anyway, guys, we have 3 articles. I thought maybe Jennifer would want to start us off with the manga bay.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
will
we've got
make
3
us
articles
teeny.
about biomass and trees and pellets, and this one from Manga Bay is called Burning Down the House, Envira's Giant U.S. Wood Pellet Plant Gear Up. So
Yep, this
wood
was from
pellets are
2020.
becoming, yeah,
It's hideous.
absolutely. Yeah, it is absolutely hideous. And then this next one from Interesting Engineering. Scientists create biomass based plastics from wood. The new plastic is not only biodegradable and recyclable, but it offers good mechanical properties. So must be good,
Yeah,
right?
I'm telling you.
Right.
And then the pièce de résistance and political.
Politico.
Yeah,
The
the green
green
energy one.
energy that
Yeah.
might be ruining the planet. The biomass industry is warming up the South's economy, but many experts worry it's doing the same to the climate. Will the Biden administration embrace it or cut it loose?
So there you go. And we thought we would start out with Manga Bay because it was from last year, but and I don't know, Jim, what goes on up in Alaska. You might be able to fill us in if there's any timber logging up there. But this one, Jen, why
There,
don't you?
there is.
Okay, then we'll give you
Yeah.
time to talk on
Tr-
this.
I
We
mean,
promise.
Trump basically gave the green light to start logging the Tongas, which is like
Oh yeah,
horrible.
that's right. That's right. I think we complained about it. Yeah, and I wrote. You know how you
Yeah,
write, you do
and
post on
and
it.
there, I mean, several miles from my house, there's a place that's got like a little mill operation going. You see them hauling in, trees. It's been cleared off of branches and limbs and that kind of stuff, just like what you just showed in that film. And
Yeah.
that's just a little local milling operation. I think he cuts it down and sells it as cordwood, for
Oh,
heating.
really?
But still,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
an operation.
I've I've bought wood before, and I don't ask. We'd rather, or I had rather anyway in the past
Mm-hmm.
get it from the. I mean, even Sam, who's with us, Mr. Collapse
Yeah.
Chronicles, gave us wood. And they
Yeah.
went to pick it up in a big dump truck, and it's still sitting out there having to be split, and I'm not splitting it. So,
Yeah,
Jennifer,
absolutely.
at
Well,
that note,
the big thing is like the hot thing became wood pellets, and they became kind of touted as carbon neutral. But are they? Right? With the carbon accounting loophole. So this was a loophole that was put into the Kyoto Climate Agreement that basically said that wood pellets is a-okay. So the European nations and other countries are rushing to convert coal plants to burn wood. I mean, that's kind of like, out of the pot and into the
yep.
fire or
And guess
something
what,
like that,
Jennifer?
right?
Guess
What?
what?
Big flush.
Big flush. Gets
Big
the
flush.
environmental coffee house flush of the day right to start.
Right. So, because they got good points for giant biomass energy facilities as carbon neutral. And so they defined wood as carbon neutral. So, cutting down forest, pelletizing trees, and exporting biomass. So, this is a case in point that there are 2 giant plants now being built by Envira Corporation in Mississippi and in Alabama. And Envira is making biomass profitable
And
by
Viva.
relying on government subsidies. Boo.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Boo. Government
Boo.
subsidies to cut
Boo.
down everything that's possibly
Right.
could be standing. Yep.
So how can this be good, right? I mean, in the end, forests are lost, carbon neutrality takes decades to achieve, and communities see a short-term boost in jobs, but they suffer from air pollution and the risk of sudden economic collapse if and when the carbon loophole is closed. So it's just this stupid little loophole because they were all on board. I mean, even like all those global warming scientists were all on board with these wood pellets, but it's not good because, you cut down the tree's giving you oxygen, then you return all the carbon that's in the tree up into the atmosphere. That's not green, right?
No, it's not green at all.
I just saw a recent report that really kind of alarming, and I think it's related to this. Some new studies are showing that as the planet warms, that certain tree species, they start to get stressed out because the temperature is getting above their tolerance, so that they switch from photosynthesizing to total respiration.
Wow.
Which means that they're not drawing down the CO2, instead of drawing down the oxygen, and then they put out CO2 because they're respiring. Plants do respire at night, but when you look at how much photosynthesis takes place during the day, compare that to the respiratory rates at night, you have a net drawdown of carbon, as opposed to basically the plants are becoming a carbon sink, not a source. Now that this is becoming a carbon source. To me, what this all comes down to is budget. You have to look at what is the carbon budget for all of this. You're cutting down these trees. Okay, so you have to calculate how much carbon into the atmosphere that's going to produce. You're planting saplings, whatever. Well, they're not going to draw down as much carbon because they're a younger tree, so they need less to grow. As they get bigger, of course, they use more carbon. So you have to construct the carbon budget and then make the determination: is this process resulting in a carbon sink or a carbon source? I mean, these are difficult parameters to get a handle on, but you have to do it. I mean, that's what I did a lot of my research on, was heat budgets. You just look at the energy coming in, the energy going out. That is really, when you look at, if someone can say, what can you boil climate science down to? Budget, heat budgets, carbon budgets. That's what you boil it down to.
All the budgets.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And this Envira company is really taking care of those budgets, because these 2 new plants that they're building in Alabama and Mississippi, they are going to be the largest biomass for energy manufacturing plants on the planet.
Jesus
and
Christ.
Just to give you an idea of how big it is, it will grind the equivalent of 100 square miles of forest into 2.7 million metric tons of combustible wood pellets, and they'll all be burned at former coal plants.
This is
in Europe and
insane.
Asia.
It's just
It's
freaking
cuckoo.
insane. It's cuckoo is
It's
right.
cuckoo.
It's cuckoo, and it just gets another goddamn flush. I'm telling you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is, flush it down. I'm done with
And
it.
all of that resulting carbon is released into where? The atmosphere.
Duh.
This
My
is an
God.
example of putting out BS, saying, but this is renewable because we're replacing the trees. We're
really?
planting for every tree that we cut down. Yeah, you're cutting down a fully grown tree and you're replacing it with a seedling.
Right.
Yeah,
No, it's not exactly. It may be renewable in a few centuries, but
yeah, when we're
it's
not
like
here.
anything else. You're gonna blast right through this resource.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So true. And this is just because of this political loophole, and they've been able to build this shaky Jenga tower of political, economic, and environmental paradoxes. And they're unable to compete with carbon fuels like coal or natural gas. And they stay afloat because of direct and implicit subsidies coming from the European Union. And those members have agreed to derive 32% of their energy from renewables. And this is classified as a renewable. I mean, it's
That
like
picture
absolutely
looks like,
crazy.
it looks like up the street from my house. And not only that, Jennifer, the trees are diseased. And the bark is I have trees that have the bark coming off. I know there's more than just the emerald ash borer. Trees are trees. Oh my Lord.
Unbelievable.
I keep picking topics that just like
yeah.
but every topic is awful.
Oh, it is. But this is especially awful because it's killing trees. I can't ever watch those shows on TV that have like on the History Channel, like these people who cut down trees and I don't know, something about lumberjacks or something. Yep. I just can't even bear to watch. It's
well,
like
100 years ago when we didn't have the population, but now, Jim, is it ever going to be tenable? I mean, without reading the whole article from Manga Bay to tell us, it's just, is it ever going to be tenable? Or is it really all going to go? I mean, what happens?
Yeah. Well, the EU really drank the Kool-Aid on this one, and they endorsed the policy, even though recent science has shown unequivocally that wood pellets release more CO2 than coal. So they're making it worse.
Yes.
Well, just think of the process to make the pellets in the first place before the person puts it into their wood burning pellet stove.
No, it's just ridiculous.
No, Sam says that picture looked like his land in New York. That's because you gave us the trees, but you were clearing it for a specific purpose, and everything was going to be used. You're not an industrial piece of property, Sam. Big difference. Oh my gosh.
I think at this point now we can talk about people drinking a Kook-Aid.
The Kook-Aid is right. Yeah, drink all these paradoxes and mix them together in your head. You end up going crazy from all those paradoxes mixed together, and then you don't even know it's crazy. So just to give an idea how big this is equivalent to 55,000 railroad cars full of coal. Can you believe it? And all while they're soaking up subsidies that might otherwise go to traditional renewables like wind, tidal, or solar energy. The wood pellet people are getting that. Yeah. It's just like insane.
I feel like I want to have the vapors. It's overwhelming.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming.
It is.
I mean, you almost just want to walk up to them and just smack them up the side of the head.
Well, you know what? To make this change, you have to go to your town board meetings, and I'm going to go to my town board meetings, and I got to get I have to go and ask where's the wood going? You know, I want to hear it from them, but not just what's online for New York State, what they're doing with our parks. But I don't know if I have the time to even do it, but it's my issue. It's been my issue for years here. Oh, boy.
Absolutely.
So do you want to keep going with this one?
Well, we could. We have a lot of articles to get through, and also the ocean. It's a really excellent article, and recommend that you guys take a look at the link in the show notes.
Well, you know, look at this.
You can get very versed. Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad.
My God. See, that's it.
So,
That was it was by a Danish news team, and it has shaken that country's conviction that biomass is a green solution. It's not. It's a destruction. It's horrible.
yeah, no kidding.
So, Jen, we have the two that um I came up with. The
Yeah,
We have the one, the green energy, the newest article that was from Politico, that might be ruining the planet. And this is the one about the South, and it's probably going to be more of the same. It is, but it's now out
yeah,
in Politico and not Manga Bay. And this is more
right.
mainstream, of course. The people that live in North Carolina that are in the Republican Party, probably, and maybe even some Democrats who think this is green, mean and green, approve this shit. But it's catching up with the mainstream. I think
Yeah,
people might be getting hip to this.
yeah,
You want me to
yeah.
take
Do you
this
want to
one?
go through that Politico article
Well, I could just really
a little
quickly
bit?
say that clear cutting
Yeah,
trees and combusting their carbon emits emits greenhouse gases that heat up the earth. All right, so it's really about the policymakers in the
hmm,
U.S. Congress and governments around the world that have declared that no, burning wood for power isn't a climate threat. It's like, okay, in Europe, like, biomass power, as it's technically called, is now counted and subsidized as zero emissions renewable energy. These, I can't even read it because it's more of the same. We know. Let's see what Biden
yeah,
says about this. Even within the Biden administration, senior officials have taken different sides of the debate. So it is a debate. It's a $50 billion global industry, and we don't know what our president in the United States is going to do with this one. And
yeah.
they say his answer is very important. So you know how I think we get to Joe Biden? We write to his we appeal to his grandchildren. That's how you
Yeah.
appeal to these people. You appeal to what their grandchildren, they're going to have no more fucking trees. You appeal to
Yeah.
these old fart politicians by their families because
Yeah. And
sometimes they think about their families.
and even Greta Thunberg has gotten into it on her Twitter feed.
Yes.
She has suggested an alternative climate strategy: let the trees grow and absorb carbon, and then don't burn them.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take a
Yeah.
genius, right?
Yeah. No.
Deforestation is a major driver of climate change, and the
And this
United
is
States
not
Climate
green.
Panel has warned the world needs to end and meet the ambitious Paris emission targets for 2050. Well, even that is like, I don't know, it's not going to
And look at
happen.
all the
Well,
car. I mean, they're driving the shit around. It's a joke for mostly everything. I'm sorry to be so. Am I a nihilist or a pessimist or whatever? But it doesn't. If anybody
No.
could look at the
You're a
picture,
realist.
yeah, look at that, the big picture. They're cutting the trees down. It's a truck. It's burning gas. It's carbon intensive. Look at the fucking thing behind it. Excuse me. I thought I could make it through this show without the F word. Look at that building behind it. Okay? This is the biggest load of, if I was British, bullocks. And don't buy the bullocks.
Yeah.
There.
I don't understand how they slipped this loophole through. I mean, it seems so obvious,
Well, we're
right?
going to have to,
lobbyists.
little. Yeah, lobbyists. But
Uh,
locally, we might have to get up. I know I have to. And I asked this question years ago in our local environmental group. And I was the one that was supposed to follow up. And yep, the trucks are still going up and down my street. And the wood is still, looks like a truck. They look like trucks like that. And it
yeah.
just turns my stomach. And then we go up to the state park and go hike through it, and you see the destruction. Okay, my rant is over.
Yeah. And
Well,
Envira
the
has just
thing,
gotten into this in the last 10 years. They only
Yeah.
started their first pellet mill in 2011 after the
They got the
renewable
money.
energy mandate was
Sure.
created,
After
right?
they got all
So
well,
they
that
well,
saw
for,
state
the
money.
opportunity and they're like, oh, this is yummy. Let's go,
Yeah,
chunk up the forest,
this
you
is
know?
yummy.
well,
I
So
like the way you say that.
horrible.
let's think about
Yeah.
one other thing. The Europe is now saying, okay, this is renewable, silly designation. last I checked, there aren't too many forests left in Europe. I mean, you have to, or for that matter, I mean, you have to go to northern, like Scandinavia. There's some isolated forests in various countries. Russia's got some trees, what have you. But where are they going to get the stuff from? Well, all we have to do is look at what Bolsonaro has now started doing in Brazil. He's now green lighted massive cutting down of the trees in the Amazon. Tell me that some of that's not going to go into pellet production in addition to other uses for the lumber.
So sad.
Oh, look at that. People were active today. Things are going on. I guess I'll have to look at what's going on outside of my little thing here.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see that Lorax movie that came out with the Dr. Seuss Lorax movie? It was really kind of profound, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's about the Lorax.
Remind me.
It was all about like these big lumber companies coming in and cutting all this wood and the trees down.
Yeah, I know.
It was really profound.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll post it on our page. Remind me.
Yeah. Okay.
Remind me. So, where are we, guys? We've got this article. Actually, though, it said in February more than 500 scientists and economists wrote to President Joe Biden and other leaders to warn that converting wood into power is a carbon disaster, a forest destroyer, and an absurdly inefficient way to generate electricity. Supplying just 2% more global energy from biomass, they estimated, would require doubling total global wood harvests. The letter made it clear that any governments that encourage biomass electricity will be ravaging biodiverse forests and damaging humanity's chances to avert the worst climate catastrophes. Trees are more valuable alive than dead. And I'll take them if they're dead. But so this was I'm happy that, well, it's a lefty mainstream, sort of middle centrist mainstream, but it's getting out there. It's getting out there. Look at this shit. It's look, there's North Yorkshire. There's a biomass. Now, does that look green, guys? Does that seriously look green?
It looks horrendous.
And then there's the Enviva. So
yeah,
I'm and then what is this? The Michael Regan. He ran North Carolina's Department of Environmental Quality when it approved multiple permits for pellet mills, including an expansion of a sprawling facility here in Northampton County that ships wood to the largest biomass plant in England. But Regan has suggested that he's personally skeptical of the power. He helped craft a bold clean energy plan for North Carolina that excluded biomass despite aggressive lobbying. So perhaps someone may have been a clueless moron and then got his head turned around. Can we only hope?
Yeah. And the other thing is they classify things as waste wood, and they say basically waste wood is anything that can't be merchandised. It can't be sold. And so they say, well, it's waste wood. It's pulp wood. It's, pine and hardwood trees can be wood chips, and sold to paper mills. So it's either not, say if they can't sell it, it's not thick or unblemished enough to turn into telephone poles. This is just the way they think about life. Everything is, for human
uber capitalist people.
Yeah.
We're talking Uber that made a lot of money in a pandemic because they saw an opportunity. Yeah. So that brings us to the next article, Jen, actually.
Yeah.
Making money. The biomass-based plastics from wood. Now, I think you and Jim might want to tackle this one together.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about plastic. Plastics are everywhere.
Yeah.
And
is.
the big problem that has
Oh
been
my
with
God.
plastics is they take hundreds of years to biodegrade, and they're some of the world's largest polluters. So they put a bunch of smart people together at the Yale School of the Environment, and also the University of Maryland, to
Mm-hmm.
basically brainstorm and come up with high quality plastic that biodegrades and is recyclable. So they've done it, actually. And guess what they make their plastics out of? What do you
Duh.
think? Wood.
Wood.
Another thing that wood can make is plastic. So basically, they can deconstruct porous matrix of natural wood into a slurry, kind of a wood soup, which is a mixture of solids, and it's denser than water. And they basically take wood powders, they grind up all this wood into fine wood powder, and then they break loose the porous part. And they're using a biodegradable and recyclable deep uritic solvent. So they basically dump a bunch of solvent, I bet that's good for the environment,
Oh,
into
sure.
this wood, and they melt it. And the end result is basically you can get plastic that can hold liquids, and it's got resistance to ultraviolet light. So now they're on the bandwagon to turn all the wood into plastic.
You know, Jennifer, when I had a party in 2018, there were all these like, recyclable plastics, and it was a bunch of shit. It's not like you could put that stuff in your compost and it's going to recycle like overnight. This is it might have
Yeah.
cut it in half, but it is kind of on the silly side. But
Yeah.
I want to ask Jim a question. Jim, in your most astute observation, when are we running out of trees?
Right, trees. Um,
When?
I'm
Oh,
not
I
in the
think our
business of making
internet's going a little.
predictions, but probably a person who deals with forests would probably be better able to address that. Um,
Oh, you could give it a stab. Oh,
I I really I really
I
can't.
know. None of us
I'm not
will.
I'm not
Anybody
qualified.
out
I'm
there in
not
the
qualified
chat?
to say.
Well, we're not either, but we might. No, anybody out in the chat that might be qualified? Give it a whirl. Give it a whirl.
I would
So,
need data to make an assessment.
that's right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that
this is going to
then
strain the forests. And it's
sure it
basically
is.
going, they're going to cut it down even quicker. And a good deal of our oxygen, I guess about half of our oxygen comes from the land and all the different trees, and the other half comes from the phytoplankton. That's dying. And then if they just keep cutting down all the trees, where are we going to get our oxygen?
Yeah,
You
Well,
know?
don't
we're
don't
having a
forget
little.
what I said a little while ago, that as the planet warms, trees are being stressed out and they're not
Yeah.
photosynthesizing as much. So there's that other issue, which means they'll draw down the oxygen even faster. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned something about not putting this in your compost. Well, if you look at that article, they talk about eutectic solvents, a
Yeah.
deep eutectic solvent. That basically is like ammonium, was it ammonium hydrate, something,
Hmm.
or chloride. Uh, let me look this up real quick. It's an ammonium salt and a metal chloride, or a metal chloride hydrate. So it's
Hmm.
basically acids and bases that are put together. So if you start putting that material into the soil, that's going to mess with the pH of the soil. It's going to mess because you're putting these ions, assuming they break down, as they claim it will. So the plants are going to probably absorb that stuff there, and we don't know whether, well, I can hazard a guess that it'll be deleterious to the
Of
plant's
course.
physiology to suddenly have chloride salts and that kind of stuff. So um, it's akin to putting the sulfates into the atmosphere and not thinking about what happens when it washes out and lands on the ground, and how it basically messes up the plants,
Ah, the
kills the
perfect
plants.
segue for you to get into the oceans.
Take it away,
Perfect
Jim.
segue. Take it away, Jim.
Well, this is kind of like a little bit of a preview of a video that I'm putting together, and
Okay,
this
cool.
is extremely. If this doesn't, well, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an oceanographer, but if this doesn't cause people to wake up and say, "Wow, we've really been crapping in our beds for haven't we for the last 170 years," I'm not sure what will.
Ooh.
About 93% of everything we burn, all the fossil fuel we burn, coal, gas, oil, that kind of, about 93% that humans have put into the atmosphere has gone into the oceans.
That is just
Now,
stunning.
so basically, if it stayed in the atmosphere, just think how much hotter things would be. But
Oh
here's
yeah.
the other thing. So why is it going into the oceans? Well, pretty much the principal result from burning fossil fuel, CO2. Let's just stick with CO2. Okay, CO2 has a molecular weight of 44. Now, of most of the gases in the atmosphere, CO2 is one of the heaviest. I think nitrous oxide has a molecular weight of 46. It's a little heavier. So because it's heavier, it's going to eventually sink and settle out of the atmosphere, where it then meets up with the ocean atmosphere interface and gets mixed in through diffusion and so on. So that's how is a main mechanism for getting that stuff into the oceans.
Right.
Now,
But there's a limited amount that it can absorb, right, Jim? I mean, when
exactly.
do the oceans start giving it off again? I mean, they don't just suck it in forever, right?
Well, here's the thing, and when we had the thermohaline circulation running, a lot of that heat was being sequestered to depth. But now the oceans are stratified because of it's warming up, and that sequestration of not only the heat but the CO2 is slowing down. And here's the other thing. I mean, this is like really insane. And maybe Sandy, if you can put up the first graph there, showing the increase in energy absorption over the first 700 meters. Now look at before we even look at, you can see the overall trend, but look at the vertical scale. That's 10 to the 22nd joules. Well, 10 to the 21 is zeta. So basically, this is like, you can take the vertical column, put zeros, 100, 150, 200, that kind of stuff there, and then call that zeta joules of energy. And obviously, when you look at the trend, this is just the first 700 meters, and they do various 3-month and yearly averaging and so on. But what I want to point out is the increasing trend. The oceans are absorbing more and more heat. It's going up. If you can show the next one, Sandy, please. Yeah, that one there. This breaks it down into first 300 meters, 300 to 700 meters, 700 to 2,000 meters, and 2,000 meters down to basically the Hadal levels. Now, the dashed lines is basically the error margin, and something like about 89 plus minus 89 zettajoules. But when you look at it, for the upper 300 meters, it's basically absorbed 380 zettajoules. That's like an insane amount of heat. And if you look at that pattern there, you can see it's starting to exponentiate. And to go to your point there earlier, Jen, as the oceans absorb more and more energy, becoming warmer and warmer, yes, gas solubility does decrease with an increase in temperature. So yes, the oceans will no longer be able to absorb that heat, that extra heat. And as it continues to warm up, some of the gas that's already dissolved will start to outgas back into the atmosphere. So you're going to see a reduction. First, you're going to see a reduction in the energy being absorbed by the ocean, followed by an outgassing of the CO2 back into the atmosphere. So this is going to really be jacking up the carbon level, and we know what happens when you start jacking up carbon levels, what temperature follows very closely soon after.
Hey, Jim, I have a question. If we didn't have the ocean, I'm trying to get an idea of the ocean offset. I mean, you said some incredible number, like 90-something% of the heat that we've produced and the carbon dioxide we've produced has gone into the oceans. What do you think the temperature might have been if we hadn't had oceans on this planet? Do you have an idea on that? It would be a lot it is today, wouldn't it?
It could conceivably be greater than what the PETM was.
Oh my God.
Just to be, and Sandy, if you could please put up that third graphic, because this is, in my view, is really telling. There we go. This is showing, okay, ocean, what they call global ocean heat content stripes. Of course, you can see, the decades along the x-axis or the horizontal axis, and basically, the baseline is, based on 1980 levels. Well, look at what's happening since 1990. The upper 500 meters. Look in the last decade. That's blowing. That's pushing 200 zeta
this is
joules.
Scary.
It's extremely scary. And look how, we can see, you look at the 1,000 to 1,500, you can still see that it's warming up. But look at the 1,500 to 2,000 meters. It's pretty much staying the same. That tells me that the vertical currents are slowing down so that the heat is not quite getting down to that level in the oceans.
I see what you're saying, Jim. We're seeing evidence of the slowdown of the AMOC right there. And the ocean currents
of any thermohaline flow. Exactly.
Of any ocean current, we're seeing direct evidence of it right there, because the way this is going, if the current wasn't slowing, then you would expect the deepest layer to be redder than it is, correct? Yet it's all getting stratified.
At least within the last few years, yeah.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
That is so
That's exactly
scary.
correct. That's I saw that graphic and I basically said an oh shit moment, in all honesty, because I saw immediately what that said.
No kidding. Based on this, are you comfortable extrapolating what that might mean, say, in the next 10 years? Can you kind of munch that all together in your head and make some sort of prediction about when the ocean is going to stop absorbing so much?
Well, you don't know when it's going to stop absorbing, but it will stop absorbing it with continued temperature increases. And it will outgas CO2 at some point. Is it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? We have to look at what, different models to do different things. But what I can tell you is that we know the oceans are dying, but if you have a slowdown of the thermohaline flow, that means you're not getting mixing. So in addition to not even sequestering heat and carbon, you're not getting mixing. Phytoplanktons need mixing. Yes, they need a stable ocean layer to stay within the photic zone so they can do their thing, but they need a mixing of the nutrients from deeper waters back up into the photic zone. That is not happening. Or that when that does not happen, the phytos die out. And basically the whole ecosystem, food web just collapses completely. Absolutely collapses completely.
Absolutely.
Now,
and
here's
also,
the thing.
Yes, please.
Also, in the past, when this thermohaline has slowed down, and we've got the data for it, as we've discussed this before, that tends to lead to an ice age, or at least a cooler regime for a bit. But now you have 200, 300 zettajoules of energy in the ocean. that's going to and now it's stratified in the upper layers. That's just going to diffuse back up into the atmosphere. It's going to keep the atmosphere warm, so you're not going to get an ice age. That's my new assessment on it. But the oceans will be dead because it's all stratified and there's no productivity that can take place. And phytos supply 55 to 80% of atmospheric oxygen. We're going to create some low oxygen
warm
levels.
Water, which is what we're creating, right, with all this heat being absorbed into the oceans, doesn't hold as much oxygen, and cold water holds more oxygen. That's why it's more productive. That's why all those big mammals, sea mammals, go up and feed in the Arctic, because that's the coolest water. It holds a lot of oxygen. It's very nutritious. There's a lot of stuff for them to eat, and that's going to go away too, right?
Exactly. And keep in mind, when you have the conveyor belt, one branch of the conveyor belt actually upwells in what's called the Antarctic divergence zone. And that upwelling brings a load of nutrients, and the phytos go to town. And then you have your zooplankton, you get your krills, and you get your baleen whales, and your orcas, and your fish, and your seals, etc., etc. Well, if you shut down the conveyor belt, there's not going to be an upwelling in the Antarctic divergence zone. The Southern Ocean ecosystem food web goes to shit.
And also, speaking of krill, you know, they sell krill oil pills, right? And you can buy krill oil capsules, and people are like, oh, this is great. Well, it is great. I mean, it is very healthy, but that's also the bottom of the food web, and that food is all meant to be eaten by those other creatures that are up there,
horrible.
Right? The krills.
And everything for us. I was just thinking this, Jennifer, the other day when I was leafing through something online, and it was talking about the fish oil, and I'm thinking, it's just, there is nothing that
we're
don't.
So horrible. We're such consumers.
We're exactly. I'm not buying it.
Homo colossus is the right word for us, because we just,
like Kat
we're
said,
so huge. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Jim. I couldn't help myself there, because I mean, it's the fish, man. It's the krill oil and all that, and Jesus, and the way they catch them on the nets. I've been seeing videos on the big nets, the huge catches. Oh my!
Oh, really?
God.
The trawls. You're talking about the big trawl.
Yes.
Yeah, the big. Now some. When the trawls, you know, they just scrape everything off the bottom. Well, the scraping is releasing carbon from the sediments.
Oh, God.
I feel like I'm a big
horrendous.
whiner here.
You're so bad.
Oh, my God. But it's just
horrendous.
Well, you know, most people, when they're thinking about, you know, the climate crisis, and it is a crisis, you know, they concentrate on the atmosphere. Makes sense. We breathe oxygen from the gaseous oxygen. But really, it's the oceans that are driving climate change when you really assess it. And seeing this new data, you know, it to me has me very concerned that I'm now starting to think that humans will probably not survive this century, and to be quite blunt. I mean, really, I just do.
Oh, boy.
That's my honest assessment. When I see data like this, I'm basically saying we're effed big time.
Oh, we're so effed.
Well, on a
WASF, it's no doubt. You know, my dad is turned into a doomer. He's always been absolutely. He's always been really supportive of me, but I was talking with him today, and, you know, he's an avid reader of the New York Times. He spends like 3 hours a day reading the New York Times.
Boy,
he has freaking digested everything at this point. You know, he goes, I mean, because we've been exchanging stuff with climate change and everything like that for the last like 6 or 7 years. You know, he'll cut out little articles with his arthritic hands shaking, and he'll stuff little envelope full and send it off to me to make sure that I get the news. But, you know, I was talking to him today, and he goes, well, I don't know if we'll be here in another 100 years, Jen. I mean, my dad has turned into a total doomer at this point.
Did he read the David Wallace Wells piece? That's what made my parents call me and said, Sandy,
Oh yeah, well,
you're right.
not only did he read it, I made that movie, Hot House Earth and the
Yeah.
Uninhabitable Earth with Dougie Hansen
You should
a
turn him on
couple
to
of years back.
Jim's channel. Turn him on to Jim's channel.
I should. Well,
Yeah,
he's
Dad would
seen
love
Jim
it.
and me. I send him the
Oh,
videos that
that's
we
awesome.
do.
See,
Oh yeah, no, he
guys,
always
we
watches
still
the
have
stuff we do.
families and we still have
Yeah,
lives. I have a
yeah,
life full of
yeah. We can all
composting
kind of
gardens.
commiserate together about
Yes.
our grand predicament, because
Yes.
it's really a
Yes.
predicament. It's very philosophical, I mean, it's going to cause
Yeah.
a big upwelling of reflection and
Well,
yeah.
and I like Rick. Those who grow will at least have a belly full of food, and I always give him a shout out because I follow his channel, Permaculture Rick. He grows like miracle gardens on a city block, a city lot. He's awesome. Yep, yep, yep. Give him a shout out because I learned a lot from him, and
Yay.
I say it every time. But it's that time of year for me. It is. It's going to be like one day of hard work and one day totally passed out in bed making a video, but still, not being able to move. I got any
Wow.
volunteers out there? Yeah. Hip camp. That's what, yes, hip camp. A hip camp of the future. All right, Jim.
Your overshoot video was really, really profound. If you guys didn't see Sandy's overshoot
Oh, they
video
did.
that she put out recently, I think you played it on, was it Wednesday?
Yep.
Or,
No, Friday.
yeah,
Oh, everybody saw it,
Friday?
I'm sure. Yeah, every
Yeah,
devotee of our channel that comes back has
yeah.
seen it, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm enjoying the foray into being a videographer and starting to
Oh,
use
yeah.
now my own footage. So, hey, I ain't dead yet. And you know what, Jennifer? I used to say that all the time when I was way younger, riding motorcycles. Always like could be potentially your last ride. And I used to say, hey, I ain't dead yet. And I'm still here. That's a
Sounds like a
testament to I
Janice
don't know
song.
what. Right? I lost myself. So,
Didn't Janice sing something like that?
probably, but not I ain't dead yet. So listen, guys, we have been an hour, and I don't like to go much more than that. And so I'm gonna do the game show. Each of you has 3 minutes to wrap up and say your closing piece. And I'll even give you both the screen.
All right.
All
Well,
right?
I'd like to say that we are an insane species to even consider loopholes and just like deceiving ourselves. I would like to say that human beings are definitely an insane species. And, we've done it to ourselves. And no one thing is to blame. It's 1,000 little decisions over the last 150 years. And it's really just a reflection of who we are as a species. And it's very telling because we get to see right up and close, that we're short sighted, that we're selfish, that we're divisive, and that we are warlike and we love to fight and have conflict. And this is kind of the fruits of our consciousness. This is kind of what we get because we are who we are.
Yeah, you certainly laid it out there. Well, Jim, you get your lifetime now. Can you do better? That was pretty profound, Jennifer.
Well, basically, I echo everything Jen just said because she's spot on correct. All I can say is just speaking from my perspective as an oceanographer, as someone who's looked at this stuff, that the situation really is dire. We just discussed how the ocean is stratified, productivity crashes. Keep in mind, 2 to 3 billion people use the oceans as a main source of protein. If you have a collapse of the food webs, collapse of the fisheries, also, as Jen pointed out at the end, which is true, that warmer waters holds less oxygen. The larger organisms will die off because they're not getting the oxygen they require for their metabolism. So you're going to have mass starvation. We're warming up the air, the ground's drying out. You're going to have massive crop failure. What crop does get cultivated will be less nutritional quality. So that will further add to the starvation aspect. And then I hear people saying, well, we'll have 10 to 13 billion people by the end of the century. Please share with us the whatever foliage you are smoking, because we all can use a hit. It's just not going to happen, folks. We're going to see a massive correction, be it starvation, be it pandemics as the Arctic thaws, whatever microbes get released. It's the saying that the chickens are coming home to roost is, in this case, not really a cliche, but it's going to be the reality. And the reality is that there will be a massive correction, a massive reduction in human numbers, and
Okay.
it's not looking good.
All right.
That. And as I said, I'm working on this ocean heat content video, which you just saw a preview of, and I get into explain like sensible and latent heat, all that kind of stuff. You folks know me; I tend to do deep dives to explain it to non-scientists,
and that's
what
fine.
else? Dumbing it down.
Why I found you.
But it's really dire, and that one graphic that wrapped it all up for me as to where we're headed, where the planet is heading.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I would like to be able to say my little piece here. And I'm going to say this, everyone, that no matter what is happening, and here I'll end on the upbeat, there are people that are younger than us. There are people out there that are activists, that are in the streets like Jim McHenry, just to get people to wake up and possibly make the slimmest little difference that could be made to make people's lives better, and going forward educating. So there's always something to do, regardless of the way the news is. So I have to end with that, because I cannot not feel that way, even with regard to the end result. Get your ass out there and make a difference if you can. And if you can't,
and
touch someone else.
And like Catton said, enjoy your life. I mean, that was kind of his net, right, Sandy?
Yep. Yep.
It's hard
And,
to not focus about, on this all the time, but, enjoy and be grateful for the moments that we have now. Because this is a real good time that we're living in, and this is a predicament that's way, way bigger than us.
But we also have to support those people, the activists out there that are doing the Line 3 and Extinction Rebellion, and all of these people that put it on the line for our Earth.
Absolutely.
And for their children and the 7th generation. So I guess we're going to end, with Basil. When you realize it's hopeless, you are free to be happy. I suppose that's a whole other show. There you go. All right, guys. I love you both, and this was great. We'll do it again. Jim, thank you. And I am going to end with our good old goodbye song. All righty? All righty.
Peace.
Good night, everybody.